Olwethu Nodada is a passionate and intentional advocate for empowering the girl child and creating spaces where individuals from all walks of life are seen, heard, and given the space to achieve to their highest potential. A former national marketing manager for Africa's largest optometric network, her transition into media and broadcasting has come as an aggravating and challenging adventure. She's had the honor of being crowned Miss South Africa Second Princess in 2020 and confines to serve as a mentor for the organization. After only 2 years in the industry, she is now a radio host on Cape Town's biggest radio station. She is the go-to host and MC for multinational corporates across the country and serves on the board of Amehlo Trust, which seeks to empower young black female optometrists through equity funding for their own businesses. As a broadcaster, community builder, businesswoman, and speaker, her biggest role is being mom to 2 girls who she wishes to inspire to excellence by being a solid example of hard work, commitment, and leading with kindness.
Oh, well, hello to our future Global Leaders Club members, our proud parents, our proud ambassadors, and of course to our special guests. It is time for us to motivate and inspire you. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your Saturday afternoon to really pour into yourself. This is going to be an inspirational and motivational session like no other. We have 2 incredible giants in the field of mining and geology joining us today. I'll introduce them today. I'd like to ask that you please make sure that your microphones are muted. FGL, I need your microphones on. FGLers, I'm going to ask that you please make sure that your microphones are muted and that your videos are off, please. You can view the session with your video being off. So at the bottom tab of your Zoom app, you will see the microphone button. Please just click there and make sure that it's off, and the same with your video. Of course, when you put your hand up to interact with our beautiful guest speakers today, you'll be able to turn back your mic on. All right, it is the 29th of June. It's just gone a little bit before 5 o'clock. We're going to kickstart the session, of course, with a reminder as to why we have a club that is the Future Global Leaders Club. Let's head over to a video with Ulihle Zilwa.
You have
My name is Lisa Zilwa. I'm 13 years old and I am the founder of the Future Global Leaders Club. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this prestigious and esteemed club that is exclusive to consistently hardworking, determined, intelligent, diligent and ambitious learners like you. You have shown your potential to strive for the best no matter what it takes. If you want to be consistently consistent in your academic excellence, if continuous improvement is your motto, and if you want to be inspired into greatness, then the Future Global Leaders Club is your virtual home. I officially welcome you as we entrench and firmly embed ourselves as the global leaders of the future.
Absolutely. A club that is formed specifically for people like you, FGLers, individuals who want to achieve super results academically in order to allow themselves to propel into a greater future. That is a beautiful reminder as to why we are here today. It's halfway through the year for most of you, and some of you would have just gotten your mid-year results, and some of you are probably wondering, how do you then get onto the next best stuff, you know? Perhaps some of your results aren't what you expected them to be. Some of you performed in the way that you wanted to perform. I want us to start off this session with a video titled Do Not Stop. It's a video that's going to really focus on why it's so important for you to study as hard as you can all of the time, and that when you reach your best, you can always push to even get better, and that if you are consistently working harder than the next person, no one can catch up with you, that the talent, the genius, the privilege does not beat you because you work so hard. Let's have a listen to this video before we get into the session.
You have an opportunity right now that you won't have a few years from now. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. Your family are counting on you to study hard. Your friends are counting on you to study hard. And maybe you don't realize it yet, but your future self is counting on you to study hard. And the goal is not to keep studying until you're content. The idea is not to keep studying until you become satisfied with your grades. You should never be satisfied. You should always be striving for better. Because the day you become content with your grades, that's the day that you stop evaluating yourself. That's the day you stop growing. That's the day that the person trying to catch you will catch you.
You have to take advantage of the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you have right now. You don't have to be the most talented, or the wisest, or the smartest, or the wealthiest. You don't have to be the most intelligent to get to the top. But you gotta study. You have to outstudy everyone. Your classmates might come from money. They might have parents that own businesses. They might know people and are able to get them a job. But they will not outstudy you. And what you have to do is make a decision that no matter how privileged or talented anyone else is in your class, you're going to outstudy them. But how do you outstudy everyone else in your class? I'll leave you with the words of Eric Thomas. I've looked at the most successful people in the world, and I realized that they have 7 or 8 similar things in common. And one of the things they all had in common was that they all had a routine. They are obsessed with routine. They don't have a gap of wasted time in their routine. They don't grind until 6 p.m. and then play video games for the rest of the night. They're not scrolling mindlessly through Instagram for hours a day. They don't have time. That's a poverty mindset. Successful people don't waste time. They don't watch TV. They don't do a lot of entertainment. If they're not working, then they're studying or getting better at their craft. So what you have to decide is, do you want to be in the 99% or the 1%? And you'll only join the 1% when you start thinking like the 1%, working like the 1%, walking like the 1%. How you prioritize your studying over the next 365 days will significantly alter the journey you're on and whether you make it into the 1% club. Aristotle said, "You are what you repeatedly do." Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act. Don't ever forget that.
As Coach Jay said, I'm not your coach right now. I'm your conscience. You're in a fight between will and skill. I say will first because that's where you are. You're locked and loaded with skill. You're studying every day. You're putting in your work. You're buying everything. Your books, pens, notepads. You're making the investment. You're living your dream. You're walking like your dream. You're surrounding yourself with your dream. You're studying until late at night and waking up early to do it all over again. You've put your work in. You've got your skill. And now it's the test of your will. It's a mindset thing you're in right now. It's a mindset thing. Because your challenge isn't moving. Your mountain is not moving. You don't feel like you're making any progress. You're not physically moving when you see everything else around you and other people around you moving. You're not making progress. You're in a test of your will right now because life says it has a little more test for you. It's no different because you messed up, because you fell off the wagon, because you failed an exam, 2 exams, 3 exams, you gave up on your studying, you dropped out last year, and you really want your dream to happen, and you're putting in your work, and nothing's happening yet. This is our moment, ladies and gentlemen. This right here is our moment, guys. You've all got to think about that just for a minute.
Right, we seem to be having a little bit of a technical issue with Ubudluvugo, just dropping off on the chat there. But Sandile, are you able to see if he's still able to climb back on? What a beautiful motivational video that was. It was just at the crux of it because it shows how when you commit to something, you start working really hard and you outstudy every single person in your class, that sometimes that isn't enough. Sometimes the challenges that you're facing within your studies and in your home environment might mean that you're not reaching those results that you want. And that's when it becomes a mindset struggle. That's when you need to be able to have your will really overpower your circumstance. It's a really beautiful video. It ends off with the thing about really giving your best and climbing to the top once again. Once you see the gaps, once you see where you've fallen short and you feel like there's just a mound of dirt piling on you, how do you get that motivation and that inspiration to shake that off? And how do you then get that inspiration and the drive to really push forward to make sure that you're achieving your dreams and your goals? And that's the point of today's session. We have two incredible speakers that are going to be sharing how they journeyed through life in an incredible way to get them to the pinnacle of their careers. And they're not stopping there. They're still pushing really hard to continue to be leaders in their field and change makers globally. But Luvuka, I don't know if you're back and you're able to continue the rest of the video, or if we can jump to Ulihle. Lihle, do you mind turning on your mic? I'd love to chat to you.
To proceed to our founder, Ulihle.
Yes, I'd like to introduce you to our founder, Ulihle Zulu, who is no stranger to you. She's, of course, a member of the Future Global Leaders Club herself. She is a published author and a really passionate young person who has a passion for this club and the passion for learning and striving for excellence. Lihle, hello, welcome to our motivational and inspirational session. How are you doing?
Hi, Sulutu. I'm doing good, and you?
I am fantastic. I have not seen you since the 18th of May, and so many things have happened over the past 6 weeks. I'd really like to hear your thoughts about what you're looking forward to today, and if you have any updates for your fellow FGLers today.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'd like to just thank everyone for being here today. I'd like to especially thank our guest speaker, Bonginkosi, who's the Senior Vice President of Operations at Kroondal, which produces 186,252 ounces of PGM and employs over 8,000 employees and contractors. You know, for you to sacrifice your time for us, you know, students who are just in high school, you know, it's a very big thing. An honor and a privilege, and we really, really appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Sis Michelle, whom I'm proud to say is actually my cousin, for giving up her time as a global geologist working for Barrick Gold, one of the world's largest mining companies, producing over 4 million ounces of gold and over 420 million pounds of copper. You know, we're very grateful for your time, Sis Michelle, and we really consider it a treasure that we come to take for granted. We all look forward, you know, to learning and being inspired by how you both got to the positions that you're in today. Then, to all my FGLers, I also have an important announcement to make. As a founder of FGL, I noticed that, you know, there are some of us who have fallen below 70% in some of our subjects while we were reviewing the marks for term 1. And, you know, when the club was formed, the goal was to form a prestigious incubating club, you know, for consistent, hardworking, intelligent, and ambitious students. And so now as FGL, it is part of our responsibility to encourage FGLers to be consistently consistent in their academic excellence. So we have decided to launch a session specially for those who need help, which we will be calling the FGL Runway Sessions. And by runway, I don't mean the fashion runway, I mean an airport runway. You know, when a plane is on a runway, that's where it's making sure everything is in place and it's set, and that's where it's now gathering speed in order to take off and make it into the sky. So in our case, on the runway, we're going to be sharpening our tools, you know, correcting study approaches and techniques so that we're able to reach the correct speed in order to take off into a place where none of our subjects are below 70%. So we must expect to receive invites for the runway sessions in order to improve our excellence in some of our subjects. So I'm proud to say that today, the Future Global Leaders Club runway sessions is launched.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for that, Lihle. We truly appreciate it. And I love that we are consistently changing and striving as a club to provide the very best resources to propel our future global leaders members to the very best version of themselves. Thank you, Lihle. We look forward to engaging with you throughout the rest of the session. It's going to be incredible. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much, Sisole, too.
Oh, it's a pleasure. But Luvuko is back. Some technical issues all sorted now. I don't know if we want to play the remaining part of that video, but Luvuko, I think it was such an important part before we jump into our chat with Sis Michelle Gabiro.
Yes, Sandile, if you can make me co-host.
FGL, as while we do that, I see some of you still have your videos on, some of you still have your microphones on. I know you want to engage in the session, but it's really distracting. We are seeing your beautiful sky in the background. We're seeing where you focusing and hanging out while you're engaging with us. I really encourage you to please make sure that your microphones are off. And that your videos are off until we call on you for a question and that sort of thing. It really makes sure that the experience is complete for everyone, right? Well, Luvuko goes back to that video. Remember, we said you do not stop, you outstudy everyone, and that it is a fight between will and skill and a mindset change at some point. We're going to pick it up from there, just about 4 minutes into the video, Luvuko. I just need your sound there. There's no sound on the video as you're sharing.
Study hard. Your friends are counting on you. I'm not your coach right now. I'm your conscience.
Perfect.
You're in a fight between will and skill. I say will first because that's where you are. You're locked and loaded with skill. You're studying every day. You're putting in your work. You're buying everything. Your books, pens, notepads. You're making the investment. You're living your dream. You're walking like your dream. You're surrounding yourself with your dream. You're studying until late at night and waking up early to do it all over again. You've put your work in. You've got your skill. And now it's the test of your will. It's a mindset thing you're in right now. It's a mindset thing. Because your challenge isn't moving. Your mountain is not moving. You don't feel like you're making any progress. You're not physically moving when you see everything else around you and other people around you moving. You're not making progress. You're in a test of your will right now because life says it has a little more test for you. It's no different because you messed up. Because you fell off the wagon, because you failed an exam, 2 exams, 3 exams, you gave up on your studying, you dropped out last year and you really want your dream to happen, and you're putting in your work and nothing's happening yet. This is our moment, ladies and gentlemen. This right here is our moment, guys. You've all got to think about that just for a minute. This right here, this moment right here, this is our moment to where we make what we have been dreaming of into reality. The exams you have coming, it all starts in your mind. You've got to fall back on everything that you've learned, everything that you've prepared for, every hour you've spent studying for it. You've prepared well for this. Dreams can become buried under discouragement, buried under past mistakes. There are dreams buried under failed exams, buried under low self-esteem. It's easy to settle for average grades, even though you have all this potential buried on the inside. All of us have things that we're believing for, something we want to accomplish. Deep down, we know it's a part of our destiny. We can feel it so strongly, but then we hit some setbacks. We didn't pass the exam. Our results weren't good enough. If you do your part and start believing again, get your passion back. It's on the way. Go back and try again. The true mark of a champion is even though some dirt gets thrown on your dream, instead of letting it get buried, you keep shaking it off. You keep moving forward. You keep looking for new opportunities.
Love absolutely everything about that entire video and that message. And luckily, as we have established with our founder, Ulihle, there's something called the FGL runway, that we're able to bridge that gap between will and skill, and are able to help you chase down your dream once again, because you are future Global Leaders Club members. You are elite superstars, and we have every trust and every faith in you that all the resources provided on this platform are going to propel you to your next in such a beautiful way. Okay, we have superstar guests, 2 of them. I'm going to introduce the very first one to you. We are so thrilled to have Miss Michelle Gabiro joining us all the way in the DRC for our session today. She is deep in the middle of, I don't know, a jungle. She sent me a picture of her location a little bit earlier on in the week as we were preparing for the session, and she's taken the time out of an 18-hour day to make sure that she's able to inspire and motivate you today. Ms. Gabiro is a distinguished geologist with an MSc in mining geology obtained from the University of Exeter and Camborne School of Mines in the United Kingdom. She's also obtained a BSc Honours in Geology from the University of Brighton in the United Kingdom. And Ms. Gabiro's expertise in managing underground and open pit projects, production ore control, and leading drill campaigns. Ms. Gabiro was an exploration geologist at Koniambo Nickel SAS in Glencore. She led the introduction and management of really revolutionary drilling techniques and campaigns on site, coordinating performance tracking and ensuring safe project execution. She's also a mine geologist at Kamoto Copper Company at the DRC, where she excels in maintaining both underground and open pit projects, specializing in production ore control and leading drill campaigns. And as from March of 2023, she is a senior geologist at Kibali Gold Mine, DRC Barrick Gold. From drilling to mining to processing the gold bullion products, innovating systems and processes through use of data to maximize super results. So please welcome Michelle to the Future Global Leaders Club. We're so excited to have you here with us today, Michelle. We're looking forward to the conversation that we're going to be having together with the Future Global Leaders Club members. I want to encourage all our members to drop questions in the chat box, all right? And if during the session you have something that you want to vocalize, just put your hand up, we'll note it and we'll come to you for the questions. Michelle, welcome to FGL. We're so thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm just gonna turn on my video if everyone can see. Excellent. This is a great opportunity. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, it's a busy schedule, and yes, the grind keeps on going, but this is 100% worth it. So I 100% appreciate the opportunity to share a bit of my world with you. And yes, let's keep the conversation flowing and just have an open chat. I'm quite excited about it. So,
we are so thrilled. So I'd like to, first of all, when you hear mining geologist, are you thinking of like some tough, strong man out there? You don't really think of a female. I'm going to allow us to get to that point where how a young person like yourself found herself in mining and geology. But I think more interesting is perhaps maybe you can share a little bit about yourself. Who is Michelle? Where's she from? How's family life and that sort of thing?
Sure, absolutely. So more of a superstar than I feel I am. So thank you for that. I grew up in South Africa, Alawa North, really small town, in the Eastern Cape. It borders the Free State as well. So I spent from birth up until I was 15 before I moved to the UK through an opportunity of my mom, who went and got a job over that side, and my sister and I shortly followed afterwards. But just to capture a bit of my life as the youth that I was, and still am to some extent. Yeah, so we grew up there, not well off at all. We're an average family, so my mom and dad worked full time, and the main support system that I had, I was lucky to have a brother that was much older than all of us. He was 12 years older than me, so he's the one that really honed in everything that I will be talking about. And the absolute hero of my life is my mom, because she is an absolute hard worker, and I wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for her. And then just to pin it down to primary school, really. Primary school was interesting. but challenging, but not more challenging than high school. I really struggled. I wanted to be a football player. I wanted to be a soccer player. I was all about the sports. It was difficult to focus on grades and all of that. But it became quite clear that I do have other interests. And I'll tell a little story that my brother told me or gave me the experience of. So in my struggles with a lot of subjects, I enjoyed geography more than anything. I struggled with physics. I struggled with chemistry. I struggled with biology. But bringing in basically my interest and putting perspective in terms of what are the giving points to getting what you want, I then captured the importance of these. So it also inspired me studying more because I've got perspective. So I ended up in the career that I am from a little story. So in the curiosity of, actually, this is a good one. Do you know how your 6-year-old brother or sister or daughters, in your case, all the way to, will always ask why? You know, why, to a point where you've run out of whys, right? And it's quite key. So I've always kept that curiosity of, why is this like that? Why is this like this? And just to cut a long story short, he gave me a pair of binoculars. He used to love fishing. He used to love watching birds, which I thought was really out of there. It was a bit strange. So it is answer to my never-ending whys. We were looking at mountains from an absolute distance. He took a pair of binoculars and told me to look into them, and what do I see? And a few minutes later, after discussing, look again, and what do you see? So in the first image and the second image, I saw more than I did in the first look. And it's quite simple, but with anything, and I'm sure you will experience this in life as you go ahead, you can look at something and look at it again, and you will see more. And life will bring these different images, these different perspectives into life. So with that said, it was the time to put in my interests and bring it back to me achieving more. And it worked. So I focused a lot more. I had honed in my interest. I had then challenged it. So even subjects that I struggled, as soon as there was perspective, I started excelling in them. I started growing in them. So by the time it was time to move to the UK, there wasn't a massive struggle because I had then caught up. I knew what I wanted to do. I say that, but at the time it didn't feel like I knew what I wanted to do.
Sure.
So
I want to go back to how gaining that perspective and how when you look at things once, twice, 3 times, things become more clearer. So then you changed your attitude towards your books, right? And how you study. Can you pin down what that looked like in those early primary school years and leading into grade 8 and grade 9?
Yes, absolutely. So like I'd mentioned, I absolutely love the sports. So I wanted to spend more time playing, competing. I got chosen to go play for the provincial team of the Eastern Cape. So I wanted to focus a lot more time with that. However, my brother taking the lead time in the time that finishing school and playing sports. So he honed down discipline, basically, where I won't have you go to practice unless you finish your homework, show me your results, show me that you're improving, and then your reward for that would be going out and excelling in the sports that you want to do, because this is how life is going to be. Achieve what you're here and meant to do, achieve the results, and then you get to do whatever you want. And I look back now and I appreciate that so much, because that's exactly what I'm doing.
I love that. Okay, all right. Then now you move into the UK. You think you were 14, 15?
Yeah, that's right. So I moved to the UK. It was an interesting time because the UK starts their school in September and we start in January. So I moved halfway across the year, which initially was meant was looked at something that would not be feasible, and I'd probably have to drop a grade. But because I had that time to then focus on my studies and get ahead, by the time I got to the UK, I could start halfway through the year and compete with everyone that are halfway through the year and just excel from there. And it didn't stop. It didn't stop. So it became a success story based on the disciplines that were instilled in the beginning, the focus that was put in. And I love the first part of the video when we're quoting and talking about habits. They're so key. They're so important. So having that habit in terms of you finish school, this is the dedicated time that you're going to be studying, you're going to be gaining that knowledge, and you're going to be pinning down your ideas and what you're preparing for the next day or the next exam or the next class. Without that, my schedule would have been everywhere and I wouldn't have been able to achieve what I achieved. So that was really key. It wasn't easy. I obviously wanted to do everything else, but I look back and it was 100% worth the sacrifice. So that was
Change is something that sometimes it's very scary, Michelle. I mean, sometimes we're anxious about even starting a new school. Sometimes we're anxious about going to boarding school. Now moving all the way across to another part of the world, where I'm sure people didn't sound like you, didn't have the same experiences as you. How were you able to still create a space of academic excellence within all those changing environments? What are some of the things, apart from, of course, the very important aspect of discipline that your brother anchored in you when you were young, but now you in high school and you're discovering high school in a different country. What are some of the key habits? You mentioned routine. Did you form friendships, and how did those friendships look like? How did you make sure that you were continuing in this lane that you'd found of excellence?
That's it, yes. I'll bring it to friendship. I chose a group of friends that just from an outside perspective seemed focused, and I wasn't wrong, and I'm so glad I did that. So having an opportunity to choose your group of influence was that. I liked them because they went to the library at lunchtime and picked a few books, and then went on to spend the rest of the lunchtime on outside, either playing or interacting with people. So that was really cool. The group of friends are really key because we influence each other. We influence each other a lot. So not only did so I struggled with IT at the time, and I wasn't as advanced as the kids in the UK. So having them in my group of circle meant that it opened up a world that I wouldn't have been able to do by myself. But outside of that, in the social circle as well, they were really key because they opened a perspective that I hadn't seen or hadn't thought of, like working in order to save up, working in the summer holidays, working in your Easter breaks in order to save up and expand whatever you want to do, travels, etc., etc. And it was great. South Africa's got a really strong, rigid school system. So with what I had learned in South Africa and moved, I became their maths tutor. And I wasn't particularly that great at maths either.
Wow.
So it was a you know, a win and gain on both ends, and that strengthened that relationship between our friends and myself. Yes, it was difficult to adapt because they don't look like me, they don't sound like me, we don't have the same priorities, yet what you bring to a group and is pretty important, and you should never underestimate yourself because you always have something to give. You always have something to give.
Okay, all right. So high school, there's also Kanya who has a question here on what inspired you to become a geologist. We mentioned that it may have been sparked when you're still in Owl North, but now you're in high school. How does that grow, and what inspired you really to become a geologist?
Wonderful. Yeah. So as I'd mentioned, I grew up in Alwo North, and we had these hot springs, and I had no idea why water would come from under the ground, under mountains, it would come up hot. So because no one would explain this, and part of the story of my brother giving me binoculars and just telling me never to stop asking why, I'd always continued that way. So I've been asking myself, why? I've later on found out, much later on in my life, but bringing it back to school, as I really enjoyed geography, I enjoyed the outdoors. My teacher noticed this and he got me to join these evening classes at the local university. Bear in mind, I'm 15 years old. I have no place in university. But it was evening classes, and it opened up the world of even adults coming in to do these evening classes just to expand their interest and all that. So that was pretty key. But in terms of exposure and all that, different people have different ideas of everything. So having a group like the Future Global Leaders is really key. It's really key because you get to a point where you're at the stage that most of you guys are in, and it's tough. It's tough. Are you choosing the left or the right route in the middle of an intersection? And I honestly remember that time as the most difficult part. But with everything that I've said, once you do find that interest, just hone on it, because it gives you so much perspective. And if you're doing what you enjoy, you're most likely going to do it well. So I then continued to find out why. I'd moved away from Alamo North years after that, and found out that, and deep under the continental crust, you've got the magma, you've got the core of the earth, basically. And from there, you get magma that warms up the next layer of metal, basically. And then from that, it warms up the underground rivers, the water table. And from a crack called fault lines, this heats up the water that has come up and come to surface. And then we had natural springs. So I've determined myself to go find the rest of the natural springs around the world. I found them in Canada, I found them in Thailand, I found them in multiple places. And it essentially brought me to what I do now in the DRC, being a gold digger per se, but but basically leading a really good career, which gives me the opportunity to enjoy what I do and carry on learning more things. My world never stops. It's just super interesting. Every day is different. Every day I meet people from different parts of the world, and it's quite impressive. It's quite impressive. I enjoy it.
It sounds absolutely phenomenal, and it's clear from your face and your voice how passionate you are about this. Obviously, you had to do really well at key subjects in order for you to be able to apply to university and to study in the UK. To get your BSc with honors and then to get your master's. Can you take us through that journey and how you then focused on the key results you needed to get in order to get into university? Did you get a bursary to university, or did you have to be some funding? How does that look like?
Sure. I'll also join that question with Sia's question. Did you have to study geography in order to pursue a career in as a geologist? Yes, I did. But you also required geography, chemistry, and maths. So those are the key 3 subjects. And the 4th subject, I don't know in South Africa how many subjects we have to choose, but you do need a 4th subject to supplement the full grade and open you up. So you could basically choose what brings up what we do. So geology is the study of the earth, and different dynamics bring up what geology is, and I'll expand into it in a story just shortly. But just to answer your question, Oloetu, yes, so it was through study loan for my undergrad. So I took out a study loan for that, and I'm still paying it off slowly but surely. But for my master's, I did get a bursary because I excelled in what I did. And part of my how can I say, my passion for travel, and I combined my passion for travel as well as my passion for geology, combined them, and then did a project in an old mine in a desert in Spain. And I'll go through some pictures just to show you what it looked like when I was walking the deserts of the Spanish mountains. With that project, it showed some key elements of what was missed out and why the mine closed. And through that, I presented it and got a scholarship to do my master's.
Wow.
So I wasn't, like I said, an excellent student back in high school, back in primary school. But that change in focus, that change in discipline, and honing my interest opened up a whole world for me. And I can't look back, because it really did open the world. So I do want to just go through some pictures as well, if we can. Yeah, just to give a little bit of perspective of my world. And Avu's question, I will come to it in a minute. So do you mind if I share my screen?
Yes, sure. But Luvuka, could you assist? But Luvuka, but Sandile, could you assist Michelle in sharing her screen, please? There we go.
Are we in? Okay. Can anyone see? Can everyone see?
Oh, yes, we can see.
Fantastic. So I just want to start with my mother. She is an absolute hero. She's an absolute hardworking woman. She's still pushing to this day, working in her own business, continuously inspiring. So she's absolutely lovely. That was in Ashaka and Durban. And just bits and bobs, just to have a view of the chances I've had to go around the world, combining my passion, combining my travels, and talking through it. So this is in Cyprus. We were mapping an oceanic crust. This barely happens in the world, where you see the bottom of the crust thrown up on top of the earth. It's fantastic. More questions can be answered a bit later in the intricacies of geology, but this was cool. This is when I was doing my internship in Bulgaria, where you do not dress like this in a mine anymore. There are enough safety precautions, but back in 2016, 2017, in Eastern Europe, we got away with this. So I've had chances of mapping cliffs in Wales, Southwest England, and this is the project I was doing in Spain. Absolutely hot in a desert. I think you'll see most of the times we got these walking boots, a notebook, and a pen. What's missing is a hammer, which is in my backpack. This is in Portugal, in an old mine. Took chances to spend my summer holidays joining some societies that exposed us to working people, and these travels that have interests in such. So it opened up my world again, an experience. This is mapping a crevice of a river, following a certain formation. At the end of this formation, you have oil and gas in the North Sea. So everything's quite interesting. This is in a desert in Namibia, with a university trip for uranium mining. And this is quite cool. This is with my dad. We took a road trip from Aloha North to Cape Town, and stopped along the way because I saw some interesting rock formations. And I might have bored my dad, but he was very interested and he listened. And he appreciated me sharing what these folds mean. And this is just me appreciating the absolute beauty of nature. And this is me in my travels representing South Africa in a game somewhere in Scotland. And I mentioned I love sports. So every year I take a new challenge. I take a new challenge. In this challenge, I joined the rugby team, of which I struggled a lot. It was tough. Fair to say I never went back to rugby, but it was fun. And just some images of me at graduation, me celebrating with my buddies, and me representing Africa with the kitwe from from Ghana, the dress code, and that's me graduating my master's. Starting my first job in mining with the yellow overalls. I think I was rocking it quite well. And then this is me and my first gigs working underground on what it looks like under there. So it looks quite scary and crazy, but it's very doable. It's quite big under there. And once you understand the ground, you can interpret it and what it means. And this is a combination of pictures of me and my buddies. This is where mining meets fun. So we had mining games where we all in our CrossFit vests and our overalls, and we're panning for gold. We're having these challenges. It was absolutely fun. This is me taking lead. Bear in mind, I'm the youngest in the crew, but I had an idea and it was worth sharing, and I inspire anyone to always share the ideas. Whatever it is, whether you're a junior or graduate or whatever, your idea are worth more than gold. So don't be shy, always share your ideas. And with all of us put together, we can achieve a whole lot more. And then the others are just some little snapshots of me and my buddies. These are the different people that you meet across the world. This is in New Caledonia and the Pacific Islands. I had an opportunity to work there for about a year. And this is where this picture is also taken in. Absolute wonderful, wonderful, serene landscapes. It's really cool. And this is me yesterday joining a project together to get one of some nice X-ray scopes put into there. And this is where I currently live. We live on camp, which is on the mine. And this is the view from outside the room. And then going forward, it's just me in the travels. This is in Namibia. This is in Hawaii, where I'm sitting on a new volcanic eruption, about a year old, and doing a yoga pose on top of new baby rock. And yes, this is me thinking that I'm captain, inspiring myself to continue to look furthermore and keep following the dreams. And I will become captain of my own boat one day. I'm learning to do that. And just some pictures of the Maldives, serene environments, and then myself and my dog Luna, which is what I do on my spare time. So besides working hard, there is also a balance of enjoying life out of it and enjoying it as well as combining your passions.
I love that. So as you can see, our chat box has gone absolutely crazy with some key questions. Some of the questions are repetitive, but they're asking the same thing. The importance of a mentor. You did mention that you had a mentor during high school, and that's what led you to actually study geology. Olaviwa says, ma'am, you spoke about field work, whereby you said you and your team were searching for uranium. Can you walk me through that? What's exactly happening during field work?
Sure, that's a really good question. So when you understand the rock sequencing, certain elements are deposited in certain rock layers. So geology is the base of understanding what exactly came up to have an environment that will host certain minerals. So when you see me in my field work in those pictures, I've got a notepad, got a pen or a pencil, and what we're doing is focusing on a certain rock layer and where it goes. And it can be, how can I say, it can be offset by different fault lines. I don't know if you've watched The Ice Age. It's really cool, but it's really relevant. You've got continental drift, right? So in the continental drift, the continents are moving, and they move over millions of years. And as they move, they collide in each other. So if you look at the shape of Africa and you look at the shape, or you look at the shape of Africa from this end, and you look at the shape of South America, you can see it fits really well in there. And through continental drift, things have moved, the tectonic plates have moved around, colliding on one end to form the Himalayas in India, and opening up in the other end, opening up Africa and South America. So once you understand the concepts of those, you can pinpoint exactly what the rock is, what the chemical constituents are, and the periodic table makes sense. You will be amazed. And that's perspective. So in chemistry, you can look at a periodic table and they're talking about what these different elements mean and all that. But once you put perspective into them, gold is in there, copper is in there. And I'll jump into the story that or a little share that I'm about to go into. But once you understand that, that's how you do. So you follow the rock layers, you map them, use a GPS in terms of location, and you get a full idea of it. Once you do, this is when you can get scopes to drill, and then you can get the depths of certain layers, and then you map them out, and then you present your project in terms of we're likely to have this mineral or uranium stretching from this GPS point up until so many kilometers. And then you send results to the lab, and they come back with chemical analysis, and you've got yourself a mine. Wow. Or you do. Yes. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So I just want to give everyone a little exercise. So Lihle, let me jump into Lihle. I just want to ask her where. Hi. Hi. How are you?
I'm getting you.
Excellent. Thanks. So on your table right now, what do you have there? I'm going to ask you two questions. What on your table is grown, and what on your table is manufactured? So if anything is grown, like a table or paper or fruit, just give me a perspective of what's on your table right now.
I have a plant.
Yeah.
On my table. You say papers are also grown?
Yeah.
Yeah, black books.
Yeah, I'm sure you have your computer as well.
Yes.
You got your computer, you got your phone, you have your pen, and then whatever's in the plant is held with a plastic thing. So I'm asking you this to give you some perspective. There are two things. It's either things are grown or either things are mined, right? So looking at your plant, you probably have a plant holder or the pot.
Yes.
The pot is probably made of some plastic or some ceramic material. So plastic is the residue of oil, and we mine that, right? Your computer, everything on your computer is made of different elements and it's manufactured. Nothing of there is grown, right? So you got your plastic again, you've got the elements behind this, you've got the screen, you've got the elements behind the screen, you've got different elements in the periodic table that make up that. You have your phone, you've got your pen, everything that's basically not grown is mined. So to just give you a whole perspective, before a mine is born, you need a geologist to go find that element, whatever it is. So that, and then you look beyond your table and look around your room. So the paint in itself are pigments, and pigments are different elements between potassium, between the different elements in the periodic table. That's what makes up the basically everything that we live with, right? You have your clothes. Some clothes are made of cotton, but they've got dyes, and different dyes are different elements put together to make this chemical substance to change the color. So everything is mined. Everything, the electricity that we use to connect right now, right? They go through copper wires. Copper wires are mined. And you always need a geologist to find exactly where the element is, the concentration of it, and then you have the birth of the mine, and then you'll have the leaders like Bonginkosi, who's going to talk us through how the rest of the world works. So that's basically the perspective of who and what I do and how it contributes so much to the world that we live in.
We take it so lightly that I don't know how we think things come to be. That's really incredible perspective. I'm going to touch on 2 or 3 more questions before I let you go, Sis Michelle. And also, if there's any that you see on the chat box that you see I may have missed that you think are important to touch on. There's one that says, what is your favorite, rock or minerals? And how do you...
Really good question. Really good question. But essentially, you define a rock is a constituent of minerals. It's a constituent of minerals. And on my table, actually, I've got a rock shaped like a heart. It's a really poor heart. But I got this yesterday in the meeting, one of the field meetings where my boss was making me accountable for something, but he delivered it in the most gentle way. So it's like, oh, Michelle, I have something for you. It was like, close your eyes. And the whole team is there. So I closed my eyes. I was like, okay, sure, I'm excited. What is it? And then it produced the rock. It's like, it's a heart shape. I'm like, oh, that is so sweet and so kind. I was really excited. And it's like, it's a waste rock, which means it doesn't have any gold, but it's sitting
No value.
No value, but it's sitting in the stockpile that has value. So go back and look at your work, look at your team, make sure that I don't see this in the stockpiles that are feeding the crushers. So this basically is a constituent of minerals. Rocks are made of different minerals then that's why they come in so much variety in the earth for us to explore and use, commercialize, and put them in manufactured ways depending on the demand. So that is it.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Sisoluti, if I may interject, another key one that we'd really desire for our guests to touch on is her role as a reconciliation geologist at Barrick Gold. Yeah, if she can touch on that too. It's one of the other key questions.
Thank you for starting that.
Yes, sure. So as a reconciliation geologist, reconciliation is mostly used in finance, I think. But basically it ties in the beginning. So from finding the ore, from drilling up until the processing and getting it as the gold bars that we see and trade in the global markets that drive the economy and drive the prices of things. So as a reconciliation geologist, I've had an opportunity in my 6 years of work to have taken leadership from being an exploration geologist to a graduate to a mine geologist and now a senior recon, to tie up what goes into the resource and what comes out in the end. So there's multiple processes that happen in between that, from finding it to having a mine design, to mining it, to separating the mine and the waste, to processing it. And in those processes, we have losses. So you can never 100% get everything out from the start to the end. However, knowing what we know, there's always going to be loopholes and there's always going to be losses. And that's the part of the discipline, of attention to detail, of always coming up with new ideas on how you can start somewhere and come out 100%. So my job is to track exactly where we are losing this mineral to the end of it, and highlighting where we can get better the next week, the next month, and the next year. That is basically what I do. So I optimize and continuously optimize. And if it wasn't for the curiosity, the passion, the ability to talk to people older than me, the ability to question them, to make them accountable, and for them to make me accountable, I wouldn't be able to be where I am. and I wouldn't be able to do my job effectively, and I certainly would not be here.
You are a senior leader in this geology mining and a very male-dominated environment. Uli Tabiso wants to know, what are some of the struggles that you have come across in being in your field, and how have you overcome them?
Sis Olutu, again, sorry for interjecting.
That's true. Yeah.
If we may kindly take some of our dear FGL's questions, perhaps after Ubudbongi's presentations.
Okay.
It's also one of the requests.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Absolutely.
So, Michelle, thank you so much. If you could please stay on, and then we'll do some of the questions. There's so many. And if you could also note any ones that you would like to answer, and we can do that as well.
Fantastic. I will do for sure. Thank you so much again. Thank you to you guys and opening up this platform and running it for us. This is absolutely brilliant. Thanks to Lihle. This goes with all the appreciation in the world. You guys are amazing. And thanks to everyone else listening. It's absolutely brilliant. And this is a wonderful platform.
Thank you so much to Ms. Michelle Gabiro joining us all the way in the DRC. She's going to stick around until the end of the session, of course, to do some more Q&A sessions with you. We are looking at time, and this is why we're looking to introduce our miner. Ms. Michelle spoke about how it's the geology first and then the mining, and this is why we have Bonginkosi Ngqulunga, who is joining us here today for our Future Global Leaders Club Motivational and Inspirational Webinar. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering Mining from the University of Wits. He got that in the year 2000. He also holds a Master's in Business Leadership from UNISA School of Business, as well as the Management Development Program from UNISA and the Business Leadership Program in 2000. Beginning as a mining in 2001. Sorry, there's a sound that's coming through there for Google. I think there's a video that's playing in the background.
Has just been belted in what is his third delivery.
Someone please mute their audio, please. We are hearing some sports in the background. Thank you so much. All right, so Mr. Ngqulunga is a senior mine manager, a general manager, a chief executive officer, and has now served as a senior vice president of operations at Kroondal. Mr. Ngqulunga is a mining and mineral engineer, and of course, senior vice president of operations. They're overseeing one of South Africa's largest platinum reserves. And Mr. Ngqulunga's stewardship, Kroondal stands as a beacon in the mining industry with an estimated reserve of over 6.2 million ounces of platinum and an annual production of approximately 217,000 ounces. His leadership drives operational success and shapes the future of mining in South Africa and beyond, with qualifications in mining and engineering, and of course, leadership masters. We are so excited to have you join us, Mr. Bonginkosi Ngqulunga. Welcome to the Future Global Leaders Club. We are looking forward to our conversation with you.
Thank you very much, Sisolwetu. Nice being here. I highly appreciate the invite. Although I think you, as you say, that my age sometimes will show that I'm still talking standards, not grades. You'll bear with me and we have to do that conversion. But thank you very much to the organizers, the facilitators, the founders. This is great work. I think where excellence is practiced, it is highly appreciated. I appreciate being invited. Thank you. Hopefully, I will impart some knowledge and skills and do also inspire people to follow engineering. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. All right, I'm going to hand over to you, Bonginkosi, and have Ubudluvugo navigate your presentation. Ubudluvugo, are you ready?
Thanks. I think while Ubudluvugo is sharing the presentation, I can start maybe just the background in terms of where I grew up and where I studied and all those things. Just, I think, my understanding really, I think you're gonna have to be courageous in everything you do, whether it is a sport, academic work. In this case, we're really looking at the academic part of it. It does take courage. You're gonna be fearful at times, but you're gonna have to learn to do certain things, although we are afraid, and that will help you in the long run. Are you coming all right? If not, I can share on my side.
Yes, if you give me 5 seconds, I'll share now.
No problem. As we have said, my name is Bonginkosi Ngqulunga. Most people will just call me Bongi. Ngqulunga sometimes is quite difficult for others. For others, it's not that difficult. I appreciate the introduction that Michelle and the groundwork that Michelle has laid. Hopefully, she has given an insight into where it all begins and all that. And I'll also then take it on from there going forward. In my background, as I said, I was born in 1978 in a place called Umsinga. You can go to the next slide. In KwaZulu-Natal, I grew up there, only really moved to after finishing matric. You can go to the next slide there. In terms of where I was born, as I said, Umsinga, which is northern part of KwaZulu-Natal, closer to Greytown. The later part, the family really moved because of wars or whatever we call it, where the families were fighting. We moved closer to KwaZulu-Natal, to Durban, let me put it that way, in a place called Ozwatini on Ndwedwe, closer to a town called Tongat. Tongat is probably maybe 30 kilometers or so from Durban. In terms of where I'll take you through, I'm on the family background. I'll touch on some of my values. I'll touch the academic journey. I'll also talk about some career choices and paths that I've taken, and some of the lessons and tips. Then I'll obviously just conclude at the end with some details in mining. You can go over to the next slide, but as I said, grew up in the closer to Durban in a place called Ozwatini, and I basically there was doing what I would call it standard 1 up to standard 5. Over to the next slide.
I wonder if Butluvuko is having some trouble moving on. All right, there we go.
No, yes, now it's fine. First, maybe before I go there, currently I'm a husband, one wife, as a Zulu, sometimes you gotta have to specify, and a father to 2 teenagers. One is 18 and another is 14. They are both boys. The 18 one is at university, started this year, and the other one is still at high school. In terms of the wife is a chemical engineer who has also honors in metallurgy. As I said, born in 1978 in an area called Umsinga, KwaZulu-Natal, later moved on because of wars, but I moved on before even I started school, really. So the school, which is grade 3 to 7, started at Ozwatini Combined Primary School, which is rural areas. Some challenges obviously presented themselves in terms of it's far, so you're gonna have to travel, you're gonna have to wake up early, you're gonna have to cross the river. I had to climb mountain. Transport was not that easily available those days, so we had to do that type of stuff. Maybe just to also give a certain flavor. When I was born, I'm born by a single mother, and I grew up with my grandmother, really, who was born in 1914. So you can realize the setup. My mother is working in Pietermaritzburg. She comes back really month end. And I'm with my grandmother really during the week, although not me alone, with other relatives. In terms of balancing the work with my studies, obviously the old lady, there's no way the old lady is gonna cook, be able to go fetch water from the river. There's no taps, remember? I had to do that stuff. So I had to carry 20 liters on my head or shoulder, or use a wheelbarrow later on when the wheelbarrows were easily available. And I had to do that for some time. And I had to learn to do basic things, ironing my clothes, washing my clothes. And I had to do that early because I'm growing up with a grandmother. In terms of balancing the schoolwork and the house chores, that for me was critical. I was lucky that my grandmother had a certain insight into terms of studies. She really was passionate about studying, and that she did in part. So she is my role model in this case. She has passed away, but my mother is still alive. My father passed away early this year. I'll come back to that relationship later on. That relationship really had ups and downs in terms of my father. Really never grew up, only will visit once in a while. In terms of studies, really did well, I would say from grade 5, started really being able to study. And I realized that the more I studied, the well I was doing in class. I enjoyed that part. I had also friends who were doing very well, which sort of helped, because if you have friends who are with you in terms of what needs to be done, it does help in terms of what you get up to. You challenge one another and you make sure you get things done. I had to move on to a township called Hammersdale later on, because really there was no maths and science in the school where I was in the rural areas. That for me was critical. When I moved into a township, obviously my grandmother is left in the rural areas. I'm staying with my mom's sisters, 2 of them. The other one has passed, the other one is still alive today. And they were staying in not very far from what we call it, Unit 6, Hammersdale or Mpumalanga Township. And I attended then Chief Lutai High School, grade 8 up to grade 10. And grade 11 and 12, I had to move. Really, one, because there was the violence in Hammersdale between IFP and ANC those days. And obviously, the subjects are also not good. I then attended the Indian school in Chatsworth, which is at Magdalen Secondary School in Chatsworth. And there is now looking at 2-hour drive. From home, I have to take 2 hours with 2 buses, one bus about 1 hour and then a bus about 45 minutes before I landed school. And there as well, in the Indian school, I did well. If you look at why did I go to that Indian school? Maybe the short answer is I could not afford the schools that were closer to me. One school that was closer to me was Kloof, I think it was a Kloof Boys High or something like that. I tried to get in, but I had to pay 1,700 rand, and in those days 1,700 rand I could not afford, and nowadays 1,700 rand is not an issue, but that's what I have had to go through in my studies. When I get to Marklands, I still did maths, physics, and economics or business economics, and I excelled in those. Why did I choose it? I was always good in maths. I didn't have really issues. I think for me, really, maybe to be more daring, everybody should be doing maths. It should be a must, really, not maths literacy, the real maths. After you actually do it and you understand the principle, you can use it, or you do use it for the rest of your life. It's the only subjects really with language that I found very useful. Other subjects, you could use computers nowadays, and you do not have to understand that. But it helps with logic, really, and reasoning. That's why I've said it. For me, I found it to be the most important subjects. You do nowadays, when you hear politicians speak, you do understand that sometimes, yeah, understanding of maths is critical, because maths doesn't have any politics. It doesn't have any emotions. If numbers make sense, they make sense. If they don't make sense, you are out. That's how we really make decisions, without really putting emotions into certain things. Maybe just to tie in on the Marklands Secondary School, that it was quite a challenging period, because, as I said, you are looking at 2 hours going in the morning. So I had to take a 5 o'clock bus in the morning, and I have to come home also with only gonna arrive around 6 o'clock at home. So you're gonna have to study deep into the night. Let us say we are now looking at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And you're gonna have to do this consistently. And because sometimes you don't want to push too late, you have to now put in more hours on weekends. For example, when I was doing grade 11 and 12, I was actually working doing gardening. I could not afford certain things, so I was forced to do this gardening work. Although it was paying me 30 rand for each Saturday that I attended, it was a 30 rand that was very critical to me to make sure I'm able to supplement the allowance that my grandmother was sending. In terms of what happens when I'm in grade 11, really, I had some friends, relatives, colleagues, in terms of the environment I was in or whatever I was doing. We also had church people that we attended church with, and we were a certain group of boys, and we liked studying. So it helped in terms of being able to say, here's a bursary document, fill it in. Those days there was no emails, were not really well I would say common those days, and we had to I had to go and open a post box, and I had to able to send letters to a couple of companies. When I'm doing grade 11, I started applying, and they would say, most of them said, Bongi, is still too early. Let us wait for you to be in grade 12 at least. When I'm in grade 12, I really applied. I'm not talking about 5, 10 applications. I'm talking over 100 applications. And after that, I had about 4 bursaries in mining. And I also had other bursaries outside of mining. One of them, for example, was submarine, where I could become a ship pilot, which was a famous career around Durban those days. The other one was SA Force, where I could do aeronautical engineering, which is a mechanical engineering, but dealing with planes. Unfortunately for me, I've attended a couple of tours and took 2 or 3 flights coming from Durban to Johannesburg during the bursaries times. And companies will invite you, would say, we're successful, we would like you to spend a week with us. They will take you to different mines. For example, in this case, I was taken by a company called Genco those days. Nowadays, you guys will know it as Billiton. And I was taken to different mines, Vegelhag, Mata Kolari, and I was also taken over to some open cast operations. Later on, I was taken by Goldfields, also have some tours. Later on, I was taken also by Anglo American, also had some tours. After these tours, I was really fascinated by mining, and I said, I'm staying in mining. And I decided to choose Genco or Billiton, as we know it nowadays. And the reason I chose it was not because it was better than others, not really. The only reason was that it allowed me to go to first year at varsity without doing a bridging program. To give you a little bit of history, those days, if you were not coming from certain schools, you had to do a bridging program for you to actually go into first year. And I said, let me decide, let me take this one. Little did I know how difficult first year was going to be. And I decided to stick it out, although I had difficulties. Also had a couple of friends. For example, I had a couple of friends who were coming from other universities, traditional universities, which actually did not offer mining or science courses. By the way, at some point in history, some people, especially Black people, were not allowed to do certain technical fields. For example, you're not in mining, you're not allowed to have a blasting certificate, which is a certificate allowing you to blast underground, because you are not trusted. And because they could not do it, certain things, although they had degrees from Durban, University of Durban, Westville, they had to start from scratch doing BSc mining engineering with us. And that helped me. It was a great opportunity because these are the guys who I will start with during first year, and they will help me with certain matters which I could not understand. And although I did calculus, I did not understand integration, for example. It took me a couple of trials to actually understand this is what I want and I can do this. But I had to have a courage. Sometimes if you do not have a choice, courage is the only option. I found it very helpful. It does propel you, although it's something that you do not want to be in lack. But if you know that this is the only option, I have to do this, I have to pass, I have to study, or I must go back to my grandmother in rural areas, because my grandmother did tell me, she said, son, you have finished matric, you now can go to work. And I said, I do not think matric is enough. Little did I know that I was right, but my decisions so far, up to so far, were proven correct. And when I did, when I finished university, my grandmother was quite excited. She actually even moved from the rural areas to come also to Hammersdale. We had to build her small room outside of my Mamkulu's house and make sure that she's taken care of closer to her other daughters. Maybe just to little bit dwell deep into mining. When you look at BSc mining, what is that? It's all about really making sure that mining, you have to be economical. So it is an economic extraction. I think you heard Sis Michelle talking about the geology part. However, when it comes to mining, we then go deeper into, is this economic or is it not? If it's economic, we connect, do certain things. Sometimes because of the decisions we make, it is not economical. Sometimes because of the decisions we make, it can be economical. So that's where the trick starts, and certain things we're gonna have to do. Maybe in terms of, for example, the university, you then, in mining, when I get there advanced in year 2000, or in year 1997, because I finished in year 2000, I started working in 2001. I actually was amazed in terms of the people, the friends that I did get. For example, the company that we had bursary students, we had colleagues who were also bursary students with us in the same company. And we were able to share notes, we'll be able to sit together. Later on, we'll see one of the photos where I graduated, although we're about 80 students, maybe about 25 or so were Black students. And we're able to actually be able to navigate. Luckily, I managed to finish my degree without failing from first year to fourth year. There were only two of us who never did any other degree before. It was me and another gentleman from Hammersdale. Luckily, we were friends even up to today with that gentleman. Maybe to look at what are the challenges for me that on the journey that I've seen. You're gonna have to be courageous. You're gonna have to make certain decisions. Those decisions are not gonna be easy, are gonna be difficult, but you're gonna have to have the courage to make the right decision, even if it means you're gonna have to put in more hours from a point of subject choices, from a point of making sure you study, from a point of what are we gonna be able to give in on and don't do it, or forsake that. In terms of in my life, for example, when I am at varsity, there are different challenges. There is an issue of, for example, using a computer for the first time at varsity. You will see one of the photos where I'm sitting in front of the computer, which I only got on second year, by the way, with the company bought for all the students, but only on second year. After they'd seen that you are serious, we have passed the first year at least. And we're able to get this computer, and I had to use it in first year to actually do certain things. Other challenges, those days we didn't have USBs, we had those floppy disks. Every time we have to submit the assignment, the disk does crash. So you have to do certain things early on. So there's a part of, I'll call it time management. You're gonna have to be, you cannot do certain things the last minute, because if you do certain things the last minute, certain things are gonna fall by the wayside. So you're gonna have to do certain things earlier on, you're gonna have to do certain things on time, you're gonna have to be able to also balance. Make sure you see your friends, but make sure you have the right friends. These are the friends that are going to be able to encourage you, to challenge you, to be able to say, this is a mathematics problem that we could solve. Although I like a situation where the lecturer will solve a certain problem, and later on, 3 days, 2 days later, we have another solution, but giving us the same answer. Because we're able to challenge one another. Maybe we can go over to the next slide. If you look at the challenges that you go through in terms of the university life, you're gonna have to be courageous in terms of making your decisions. As I said, don't be afraid of maths. At some point, you laugh at things that we are afraid of, because being afraid, you cannot live your life always afraid. You're gonna have to face your challenges head on. In terms of the average, for example, in terms of my fun experience, I used to, for example, go to Vestec those days where they used to have a Vestecticon, and I'll leave Vets, and there was more fun there. However, just make sure that on come Monday or Sunday, you are ready and you are able to, you have done all your homework, all your assignments, and everything is done on time. For me, that was critical. In terms of what do we do as mining? There's different fields in mining. Maybe let me go back a little bit in history. Mine engineering actually used to be one thing. There was only mechanical engineering. There was nothing else. Later on, people obviously added certain things. Electrical, mechanical, civil, aeronautical, industrial, all those things nowadays will even get more fields that have come in. Maybe to go into mining. Why mining? As I said, I was inspired by what I saw, but it was mainly the companies that sent me around to be able to see. I didn't have a good understanding of mining. Only after those tours with different companies was I able to understand, okay, this is mining. Mining entails being able to deal with different fields. For example, you will have geologists, different types of geologists, exploration, mining, but you will also have mechanical, civil, you will also have the doctors, because the doctors have to make sure that your workers are healthy, by the way. They have to make sure they do what we call medical certificates, which allow them to work at the mine. And you have to, there's the people, when the worker is sick, maybe he's losing his hearing, they will tell you, you have a problem. This worker is losing a hearing. Which place or which working place or which area is he working on? Is there too much sounds in that area? Then you'll have what we call hygiene people. And hygiene people are sometimes mainly mining engineers, but who have specialized in environmental conditions underground. You also have what I'll call rock engineers, which is mining engineers, but who really specialize in the technical side. On technical, what we'll call it strength of material. They say, this is how you have to support this ground. The support must be so far from the face. You'll also have explosives. So you have to be able to understand how you deal with explosives, because you do not want to kill people. So you have to handle these explosives with care. And as I said earlier, only after I got to the mine at around 1997, 1998, where the workers, black workers, starting to actually do certain things in mining. Being able to use explosives and being able to become supervisors. Later on, obviously, we started becoming mine managers and general managers and senior vice presidents, which I am today. On the plan that we are seeing there, you are seeing an area between what I'll call Mooinoon and Rustenburg. On your right-hand side is actually Pretoria. If you look at the block at the bottom, on your bottom left, you will see Gauteng, you will see Northwest, you will see Rustenburg. If you go above that, you will see that red line, that is actually N4. You will see Mooinoon, and you will then see different operations. If you look at far left, we are looking at Kusalega 2. If you look at far right, you are looking at a project called Pandora Deeps East 4. If you look at the area that is gray area, that area, I actually manage half of it. That half of it has to produce about 44,000 tons a day, not a month, a day. There is 16,812 mine employees. Out of that, those are mine employees that are working for Sibanye-Stillwater, 16,812. That 16,812 are broken into two. There's a 14,600, which is my own mine. There's 2,184, which is contractors. We are looking at a revenue of about 2.1 billion rand per month. About 25 billion, or about 25 billion rand per annum, but it's about 2.1 billion a month. That's about 85,000 cell phones a month. If you would say that each cell phone, iPhone, costs 25,000. That's a scale of the operation you are running. Guess what? You cannot run it on your own. So you're going to have to rely on people with different skills. Guess what? There's always going to be somebody better than you in any field. All you have to do, you have to make sure you direct them, you identify a talent, you manage a talent, you praise people if you are doing well. If they are not doing well, you are able to assist them to identify gaps and you fill those gaps. That's all, because you have to deal with people. That's probably the hardest thing I have to learn in mining, is dealing with people. It is a more challenging than the technical side. The technical side of calculations, maths, physics, geology, rock engineering, whatever, that one is easy. But dealing with people is quite an interesting field. And it is quite broad. Maybe if I go deeper and just go over to the next slide. There are some questions. So, hi, sir, I wanted to ask what topics in mathematics and chemistry do mining engineers use and how do they use them? There's definitely a variety of fields. I would say, for example, in mining engineering, as I said, I did a BSc in mining engineering. There was those days, you could do a diploma at Vestech. Nowadays, thank you, Puti. Nowadays, I think it's a BTech. There is also BEng, mining engineering, from University of Pretoria. If you look at, this is a mining value chain. If you look at your far left, you see the exploration and geology. That's where Sis Michelle has spent more time in. So I'm not gonna go there. But we then come in when we have to do design and we have to plan how this mine is gonna be looking like. Because we have to take what Mrs. Michelle is telling us, and we have to overlay what is practically possible from a mining point of view. Is this a narrow reef mining? Is this a massive ore body? Can you mine this safely? That's the most difficult part. And what explosives are you gonna use? And what the prices are. I've seen a gold when the gold price was at 250 rand, or $250 an ounce. If you look at where the gold is sitting in now, that's what I've experienced in my life. I've experienced when it is low, I've experienced when it was high. What do you do when it's high? When it's high, you can mine certain areas, but when it's low, you cannot mine everything. So you're going to have to sometimes do selective mining, what we call it. And you have to design your mine for that. That's why that design and planning is critical. Then you look at the drilling and blasting. What type of explosives are we going to use? Other countries, for example, they are very strict on certain chemicals. So they don't allow you to use certain explosives. So those are the things that you're going to have to consider. So you're going to have to work together with mine geologists, mining engineers, electrical engineers, because they have to say what type of power you're going to get. In our case, is Eskom going to give you power, or are you going to have load shedding? What load shedding factor are you putting in? Are you putting in 10% is going to be gone, or 20%? What backup power am I going to use? Must I build a solar plant? Must I bring in generators. Those are things that you're going to have to deal with. And what stockpile and what maintenance are we going to use? Then you go to processing. The processing, that's when you're looking at the plant. You are taking the ore that you've mined, you are putting it in a plant, can be a concentrator, for example. That concentrator has to do certain things. It has to be able to produce the quality that you need, because you can mine it, but if you cannot process it, it's not economical. You might as well walk away, go home and look after your cows. That's it. So if you can process it and you can do it profitably, then you can go over to the next step, which is probably smelting and refining. There, smelting and refining, you are also increasing the grams per ton, the concentrate, and you are also looking at what logistics, for example, are you tracking your ore from mining to the plant? Are you railing it? What is your rent per ton for a rail? What is your rent per ton for a truck? That's why I said the economic part plays a bigger role. Mining engineers, although we do geology 1, we'll do geology 2, we do not go beyond that when I was still doing my degree. However, for example, at Vets, all engineers will do same first year. So you'll do first year, second year with civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. You'll all be doing physics 1, physics 2, chemistry 1, chemistry 2, mining 1, mining 2. Only in third year and fourth year, you then specialize in mining, and others specialize in civil, and others specialize in aeronautical. That's how it was. So you're going to have to understand, although you're a mining engineer, we are doing it mining, but you're going to have to understand your processing. You're going to have to understand your smelting, because whatever you do in mining is going to affect your processing. If you're mining at a lower grade, your processing might have to change certain things. So you're going to have to understand how are you impacting the other steps. Then obviously you're looking at your metals accounting and how are you doing that work. Hopefully there's an independent party. There's always a fight between miners and the guys who are doing the processing. So you need an independent metals accounting department. And there obviously cost accounting, your maintenance and support, but your sales and marketing is also very critical, because are you going to do your own sales and marketing? Are you going to outsource it? And is there enough customers for the product? Because if there is not enough customers for the product, you might have to do something on your mining. You might have to reduce your production and say the demand is not there. I'm going to have to retrench. Then the labor law comes in. I have to go through a 189 process. When the times are good, I have to recruit. When the times are bad, I have to retrench and follow in 189 and your VSPs. And you now have to deal with your HR people, but who are specializing in labor law, to say, hey, in South Africa, you have to follow this process called Section 189. So you're going to have to be able to recruit, you're going to have to be able to retrench, and you have to do all these things economically. That's basically the balance. Going over to the next slide. In terms of geology 1, geology 2, what's the difference? It's just at what level of details are you going in? Those days, for example, as I said, geology 1 will sort of be an introduction and geology 2 will be an intermediate, but the person who is a geologist will then go beyond that, where mining will sort of end and don't go. So when I sit with geologists, I have to understand basic, but I don't have to understand the details that Sis Michelle will go to, but I have to understand how it's impacting me from a mining point of view. And I have to understand how is it going to be impacting the plant. So for example, when you work, you'll have your geologist, your mineral, we'll call it your mineral resource department, and they'll be able to say, Bongi, at this price, you're going to have to mine this area, not this area. At this price, we can mine this area. When the price changes, you're going to have to change your mining method. That's why I said an economic extraction, that's the most important part. It has to be economical. If you look at what I'm looking at in terms of on your right-hand side, that is just the value chain, but maybe going into more details. I'm mining an ore, for example, might be UG2 at about 3 grams a ton. I'm taking it to a plant. When I take it to a plant, they have to process it and concentrate it and bring the 3 grams a ton to 200 grams a ton. I have to take that to a smelter. The smelter is going to take it from 200 grams a ton to 5,000 grams a ton. Then I have to do certain things. I have to do extract nickel and copper, which is called base metal refining. Then I have to go to precious metal refining, which is extracting platinum, palladium, rhodium, gold, iridium, and ruthenium. So when I look at prices, although people will look at a gold price or a platinum price, I actually have to look at the combination. Like right now, we're getting more from copper, from chrome, because the byproduct is doing so well. So that's why the economics and the understanding of it, because we might, although we might be called the gold mine or we might be called the platinum mine, but you might be making your profit not necessarily from a platinum. You might be making your profit from something else. And you're going to have to understand your ore body, which ore body gives you a better mix, let me call it. If you look at your the photo on the bottom left, that's what just giving you a layout of a mine. You have a conveyor belt going down, you have different machines, and those different machines are your LHDs. This is like a we always see these machines, yellow equipment, whether they are next to the road. You'll have what we'll call an excavator, and you'll also have a machine with a bucket in front. But mining, that's a machine which is in the middle there with a yellow color. That's a LHD. That's as same as a surface machine, but is compressed into a smaller size because it has to fit in at about 1.4, 1.5 meter width. And so the design is different. There are certain companies which specialize in those machines. So there are mechanical engineers, artisans, diesel mechanics who have to fix that machine. On your right, you have a drill rig there, and that is what is drilling your hole. Those are the holes that you're gonna charge with explosives. On your left-hand side, but looking at let me say the bottom graph, that's where the processing is part of it. And on your right is when the smelting part. I think the picture on the top, but on the right-hand side is where we are seeing a guy called the rock drill operator. During Marikana, that was a picture that the media in South Africa was using. So most of us, that's a picture we understand. But in reality, there's a picture which is on your far left. So you can drill with that machine. You also, on a certain design, you can drill with a very expensive machine, which is called a drill rig. So that's what really mining is about. All these things, you're gonna have to manage them. And you're gonna have to apply yourself. And there is no way you're gonna be able to manage them and understand them better than some other people. So you're gonna have to be able to delegate certain things and say, you are in marketing, how are we doing? And you're able to analyze the data and make certain decisions. And the marketing person must still advise you. That's how I look at it. In terms of your electrical engineers, for example, they are telling you that Eskom is load shedding. You're gonna have to be able to say, is it economical for me to bring in diesel-powered equipment, or must I bring electrical-powered equipment? Because you can have a diesel-powered machine, you could have electrical-powered machines. That's an economic part that you're gonna have to do as a mining engineer. And you are looking at from geology to marketing, and you are saying, can I be able to do this business at these prices with which mining method? That's why mining for me is quite interesting, and I'm encouraging some of you that you should be able to pay soon. Maybe go to the next slide. If you look at, for example, currently the recipients in the field of study, we're obviously looking at high school learners who are in grade 12, and obviously students who are already at tertiary institutions. The field of study that we sponsor, BSc Mining Engineering, BSc Electrical. As I said, BSc Mining Engineering, there's different fields of mining engineering. You can be looking at ventilation, you can be looking at rock engineering, you can be looking at the economic part of mining engineering. For example, you go and work at Rand Merchant Bank or those type of banks and you analyze mining. Electrical engineering can be heavy current, can be light current, because certain things happen. Nowadays, for example, with the machines we have, there's a lot of electronics which we do not have those days. But we are now moving into that space. Then the geology part, which I'm not gonna go to, we do sponsor also the finance, the mechanical, we do sponsor metallurgy, chemical, and we do obviously mine surveying and developmental management. Next slide. In terms of obviously which institutions we deal with a lot of institutions, but obviously there are others that we are currently busy with. Next slide, put. Sorry. In terms of the institutions that we are dealing with universities, mainly in South Africa, and we have to be a South African. This is just the highlight. And how does the process work? And the process, obviously, there's an advert. You are gonna have to make sure you apply. You're gonna have to go through a selection process so that the process is fair. That's how really we do the selection. But as I said, I'm not the one who's working in that field. There are people who are dedicated in HR, dedicated to do this. I'm just highlighting what is out there. Say, what do you need to be qualified for mining engineering or geologist? In terms of mining engineering, as I said, you could do a BSc mining engineering at universities like Wits. You could do BEng, which is pretty much same as BSc at University of Pretoria. You could do BTech, which is Bachelor of Technology at the university, I think, UJ. Sisolwethu?
Yes, but no, I'm just turning on my mic because I see Budluvuko hasn't moved on to the next slide. If you could maybe list those universities that you support, or there they are. All right.
Thanks. Since I think from the university, as I said, University of Joburg, which usually it used to be Vestec and other like around the form University of Joburg, University of Witwatersrand, University of Pretoria, and Northwest University. But these are the things you're gonna have to go through and apply and do your own research. Which university do I prefer? I do not necessarily prefer any. You're gonna have to make up your mind.
All right.
In terms of, can continue, sis.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. I want to get to some of the questions, but I'm thinking you're covering some of the questions that have already been asked. So I'm going to, of course, give you the time to complete your conversation before we jump into any questions we may have missed.
No problem. I'm about to finish really. In terms of what we look at.
And sorry, if I also may just interject that we might need to proceed beyond 6:30. I just wanted to convey that to Sis already.
Okay,
yes.
No problem. In terms of field of study, as I said, in terms of selection criteria, it looks at the field of study. We also look at representation. We are interested in female, we're interested in rural people, we're interested in disabled, and we obviously, as I said, we look at the race as well, in terms of making sure we are targeting the certain skills. In terms of, obviously, there should be evidence that you are admitted at a tertiary institution. You must be a South African citizenship or citizen. So those are things that we look at. Would we sponsor people from outside? In certain cases, it does happen, especially people that have already met certain requirements. You can go over to the next slide. Just maybe in conclusion from my side to say, results happen over time, not overnight. Work hard, stay consistent, and be patient. You do not give up because of your first try. You do not give up because you failed a test. You failing a test can never define you. You could always do better on the next test, and you learn from what you did wrong in the previous test. And you're gonna have to dream big. As I said earlier on, your dream has to grow. You start being, I wish to be an engineer. I wish to be a driver. But sometimes you say, I don't wish to be a driver. I now want to own my car. I wish to be an aeroplane pilot. At the later on, you don't only wish to be an aeroplane pilot. you wish to own your own flight. You don't, at some stage, you wish to be a mining engineer, but later on, sometimes you wish to own your own mine. Black child, it is possible. And you have to discover how to activate your leadership potential, develop a positive legacy, find resources to fulfill your vision, empower others for leadership, discover your unique role in life. That's basically, for me, some of the quotes that keep me going. You are unique. You can do anything. You have unlimited power at your disposal. Nobody tells you what to think or how to think. You determine the thoughts that go through your mind. You can feed this mechanism in which way you choose. Your thoughts create your reality. We have this power. It is up to you. Maybe just in closing, some of the photos, I think the last slide, you'll see some of the photos in my life. I've gone through different phases. Maybe starting on your top left, that's a mine, that's Sibanye-Stillwater owned in the US. The one in the middle, but top, that's me on your right there with my two boys at Kennedy Space Center. Because the young one was arguing with me, saying that I should not do physics. I'm happy with maths, but not with physics. I took him to Kennedy Space Center and I showed him what is possible. We came back there, he was a different person. On your top, on your right-hand side, that's me in a township here called Olivenbosch, where we go and we talk with young people, we talk with children, we talk with disadvantaged, because the Bible said, to whom much is given, much is required. On your, just below the US mine there, that's me in front of the computer. That is my university days. At the bottom, that's me also doing some charity work where we go on weekends. I take my boys and I say, let us go out and see what difference we can make. At the bottom, that's me next to a conveyor belt underground. That's probably very early on in my career. On the bottom, on the left, on the far right at the bottom there, that's me. That's my two boys. That's my wife on the left. Wine Miami. All possible because of mining. All possible because I didn't give up. If you look on the photo just on the right above the four of us, that's a graduation photo. It says final year class 2000, where I was graduating with my first degree. All this comes with you being courageous, not being afraid to make certain decisions, to make certain choices. It is not how you start, it is how you finish. It is not what happened to you, who left you, who did not give you money, who did not look after you. All that is useless. As I said, I remember that I was burying my father in April this year. We had a relationship. Although he was 70 years old, we only had a relationship the last 3 years of his life. Those are the decisions you're going to have to make. You cannot be bitter forever. You just sometimes have to move on. Thank you very much, colleagues. I hope you are inspired. I hope you look at what we can offer in mining and geology and other fields in the mining space. As I said, we have doctors, we have industrial engineers, we have psychologists, we have everything in that space. Thank you.
Bonginkosi, thank you so much for that really thorough presentation. I think you've really done the thread through everything that you've overcome and how you're where you are today. I think we take for granted just the impact of mining and geology so often. And I think when we are heading out to the big city or we're driving in our cars, we can really appreciate the impact and the role that you play and in creating all those things. There are some questions here, but I'd like, maybe I'm going to do 2 questions, 3 maybe. Avuya, are you there? Do you want to put up your hand? If you've got a question for Sis Michelle or Butibongi, you had a few questions. You can choose which one you want to ask that hasn't been answered. Avuya. Butluvuka, do you see Avuya there? Okay, Avuya, if you're not there, Evie, where you also had a question, if you turn on your mic. We're all getting shy now.
Avuya can unmute.
Yes, please, Avuya.
Okay, it's fine. You can go on to the next one. Oh, okay.
All right.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi,
I would
sister.
like to ask how do you keep up with the pressure of deadlines of projects for being a female in this industry? The question is related to the geologist.
Michelle, did you get that question?
I didn't. If you can just please just rephrase for me so I just catch it again, please.
How do you keep up with the pressure of deadlines of projects for being a female in this industry that is commonly found?
You got that? So keeping up with the pressure of deadlines, especially as a female in a male-dominated industry and as a senior leader.
Yes, no, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. I'll start with being a female in the mining industry. There's very few of us, and as Bonginkosi also mentioned, it's very much encouraged because there's a whole world of us. As a population, there's almost about 50% of us. So if you just take out the woman perspective, or the male and woman perspective, you're taking up half the talent out of the work skill. So encouraging more women to come into it is bringing more skills, it's bringing more perspective, and it's bringing, perspective, different ideas, right? So I do not have an intimidating bone in me. I don't. But before I go into a meeting, before I lead a project, I read ahead. I study ahead, I am prepared. So I love what Bonginkosi also said about maths. You take away the politics out of things and you talk about facts. So in our world, when you study ahead, you read ahead, you know the project scope, or you design the project scope, there is only so much you can talk about. So remove the intimidation, remove the politics, remove the seniority. In the end, you come up with ideas, with designs, with facts of the knowledge that you have, and you bring it to the table and your ideas become heard that way. So your perspective is heard. And in terms of deadlines, it is exactly the same principle as it was at school, where you get a better chance if you study ahead. Don't leave anything to the last minute. Things don't happen the next day or overnight, right? So it's your compounded knowledge that you've been studying and having the chance to look outside, and this is how you stand out. So for me, I will not go to a meeting or a presentation unprepared. I will make sure that everything is in place. I have read outside the scope, and I love people. So I always talk and I always give a call. I always ask. There's no question that's stupid or ridiculous enough. Your curiosity will lead to you knowing more. And this is how you get through those challenges of leading projects that are beyond your scope. So ask, read, get prepared. By the time you're in the scope where you're having the chance to present or leading the project, you've got all aspects covered. So that's how I would do. And just the last part, we're human. We get tired. We get very tired. But pushing that limit just over just makes that last difference. So rest, obviously, it's very important, but even though you feel tired, even though you want to do other things, just push that little bit more and you will see the results reap at the end, and it's 100% worth it. So I hope I answered your question. If not, I can expand to it a bit.
Thank you so much, Michelle. This is a question for Bonginkosi from Love Viewer. It's a question about balancing the benefits of mining for the economy and the risk for the people and the environment. And I think in your ecosystem, you've addressed it on how you have all these different individuals in the value chain. If you could please unpack it for Love Viewer for us, please.
Thank you very much, sis. I think in terms of balancing, maybe let me start with the lives.
Avia, do you mind turning off your mic, please? Thank you so much. Yes, Bonginkosi.
Thank you. In terms of really balancing, I think nowadays there's a little bit clarity in terms of certain laws. For example, let me start with people's lives. For example, we have a Mine Health and Safety Act. It is very specific in terms of what we are supposed to do, what we are not supposed to do. Unfortunately, sometimes people do lose lives, whether somebody came to work and did something wrong, or it was a fault of their own, a fault of the colleague working next to them. It doesn't matter. You're gonna have to balance certain things. That's why, for example, for you to be a mine manager, you must get what we call mine manager certificate. That allows you to practice in South Africa. For you to handle explosives, you must get a blasting certificate. There are certain things as well from an environmental point of view. It will say this is what the noise level should be so that people don't have noise-induced hearing loss. And it will also say this is the quality of water you have to have. So you have those specialists also playing a role in making sure that certain things are sort of met and certain requirements from a law point of view. In terms of, for example, where we are currently, if you look at how many people we lost in the mining environment annually to where we are nowadays, we have dropped to closer to plus minus 50 people. 50 is still too many, but we are not there. But if you look at 20 years, 30 years ago when I started up in the mines, you cannot compare the two. So we have improved, but we're still having a lot of work to do. In terms of if we're to move people out, because you could mine autonomously and use the machines and use the machines that are programmed to do certain things and people stay on surface, you will actually even have lesser damage in terms of lives and also in terms of the environment. However, it has an implication. People will lose jobs. Thank you.
So Bonginkosi, that question also comes in with Buko's question of how do you see mining in the future? And perhaps that's the last question we'll take before we close off the session. How do you see the mining industry in the future?
I think the mining industry in the future is definitely going to look much different. It's going to the world of I'll call it where robots are able to do certain things. Instead of having the rock drill operator in the face, can I have a robot doing that? Instead of having a drill rig doing that, can I have the operator of the drill rig sitting on surface or worse, sitting in Johannesburg and the rig is somewhere in Northern Cape? That's where we are really going. But is it going to happen right now? I would say for the mines that are in existence and were designed in a particular way, it's very difficult to change. But for the mines that are being designed nowadays, we've seen what BHP Billiton and big companies are doing, and they are doing most things remotely. That's what thank you.
Very exciting. I know I said last question. Usibabalwe is caught in a challenge of choosing between actuarial science and mining. If you had to help him, what would you say in terms of your demand for the mining engineering qualification?
Thanks. I think it becomes quite interesting. If you look at actuarial science, I would say actuarial science is a little bit more difficult. However, it depends which institution you are doing it. For example, if you do in certain institutions that I know, you will still be doing well. If you do it in other institutions, you're gonna have you're not gonna sleep. So at the end of the day, I will not necessarily force you in any particular direction. You can do actuarial science, you can do mining. Actuarial science deals with a lot of stats. If you are good with numbers, that's a perfectly the right thing to try. You could always change your mind also into mining. You can try actual science and say, let me go for 1 year. If things don't work out, let me go to mining or go to mechanical. So it's up to you, really. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much too, Bonginkosi and Sis Michelle. We'd like to close off with the video. A big question that comes up, of course, is how much you're earning. FGLers, we're not going to say how much our speakers are earning, but we can certainly see in terms of the quality of life and how they're able to explore and travel the world and how they've grown to the leadership positions, that the hard work has paid off and certainly has allowed them to live off their hard work. Okay, we're going to do one more video. That's just to close off the session. And then I'll announce, of course, new dates for the FGL webinar that's coming up in July. Lufogo, if you could help us with that video, please, as we close the session. And yes, also Michelle has continued to answer the questions on the chat. If you have any other questions, you can keep sending them on the side, outside of the chat, and be able to get comprehensive responses to some of your questions as well. We didn't get to ask all of them.
The rigors of academic life can be brutal. Long days of classes, long nights of studying, and low cash flow requires you to be frugal. Projects, case studies, pop quizzes, and final exams will test your morals and your scruples. But you keep pushing and pushing, because you know one day all of that hard work and studying will pay off and be fruitful.
They didn't know that you had that hustle in you. They didn't know that the beast that you were becoming, they wasn't doing anything but add more fuel to the fire. They didn't understand what it felt like to struggle. They didn't understand that the competition was you. All the haters that went against you, all the people that doubted you, they didn't know who you was becoming.
You've seen many others succumb to academic demise and wind up with the wrong letter on their transcript. The dreaded W, which painfully stands for withdrawal. But that's where you draw the line, because you made a vow to choose incline over decline. Fast forward over rewind, redesign over recline, and hard grind over pouting wine. You made the choice to dig deep within, and thus the only W you will ever get will be the W that stands for win. Because winners like you pick themselves up when they stumble and slip. Winners like you understand that it's impossible to never trip. Winners like you are strong enough to say no when their friends want them to take a sip. Winners like you trust the process, so steps they never ever try and skip. And that chip on your shoulder, it remains to remind you of all the doubters, naysayers, and haters that said you would never walk across that stage and receive that paper. But more fuel for your fire just makes success so much greater.
Turn your haters into your motivators. And never let anybody else's opinion be bigger than your own. Understand the struggles that you go through are helping you to get to your destiny. The adversity and hills that you have to run, the mountains that you have to climb, it's taking you to greatness. So I'm telling you, don't run from the adversity. Don't run from the problem. Because if you don't face it, you can become it. It's gonna make you stronger. It's gonna make you better.
Because you're overcoming the sour taste of now to get to the sweet taste of later. You adjust to all the different personalities of your teachers and professors and enjoy those that are super cool, but stay mentally prepared for those that are stressors. Blessings seem to find you because the universe conspires to make sure everything falls into place because you've got so much heart, passion, and desire. Your fire keeps burning, but at times it starts to fizzle. But you remember you owe it to your future self, and that gas turns that fizzle into a sizzle. You want to leave a legacy and contribute to the greater good. So for now, it's the uncomfortable, discipline, and sacrifice. Because to cash out in the future means today you gotta pay the price. So that means when your friends ask, can you go? Your heart wants to say yes, but your willpower says no. Because Mr. Jones' thermochemistry 3202 ain't no joke. And so you gotta be locked in and stay woke. Because he's all about business and doesn't give any rope. So if you miss any assignments or fail any tests, you have very little hope of passing his class. But you will pass his class, and you will pass it with flying colors. Because you, my friend, are an academic hustler. And thus you put in the time, the effort, and ask all the right questions to make sure all of your bases are covered. The vultures will hate. You tried to give them vision, but they never put on the right frames. And thus their sight was blurry, and their gray reflected it. And now they want to throw shade at you, but your shield deflected it. You tell them winning in progress over here, so please eliminate the negative vibe. It's time to remove them from your circle and find yourself a positive tribe. Because misery loves company. But that misery cannot have any of your companionship because everybody on your team is working as a unit to come back and win the championship. You owe it to your future self to make money moves in and out of the classroom because time waits for no one. And whether you succeed or fail, it will pass soon. Walk with character and integrity so your reflection in the mirror is who you want to see. Your future self is counting on your current self to set the tone and make sure your future is not only bright, but powerful and strong for mediocrity. Your future self is counting on your current self to never take shortcuts and never lack integrity, because a day will come for you to walk with character and have clarity. Greatness is your destiny, but at times you must reboot your mental computer, because every step you take today will directly affect your future. This is a great day to win.
Absolutely, absolutely. That video summarizes every single thing that our guest speakers, Ms. Michelle Gabiro and Mr. Bonginkosi said today, that it's all about courage, it's about hard work, it's about discipline, it's about sacrifice, it's about resilience, and it's about putting in the work every single time. Our founder, Ulisha, at the start of the session said we are launching the Runway series, FGL Runway series. We're going to be sharing how you can plug into that series to make sure that you're getting better every single day. Thank you so much for your time, FGLers. Thank you so much to Sis Michelle and to Bonginkosi for their time and really pouring out their journeys to success and being so motivational and inspiring. We're going to meet again on the 13th of July for another webinar for all of you FGLers. And I encourage you to encourage other people who have not registered for this webinar to let them know how much they must start on and how much they can gain and value in the next one. We really want to also say a big thank you to Lumko Hai, who joined the Future Global Leaders Club in the middle of this year. Thank you so much for finding your path to excellence. We look forward to journeying with you into the future. Thank you so much, FGLers, our proud parents, our ambassadors, and of course, our guests. You must have yourself a great and safe evening.
Sis Olwethu, just a moment. Would it be possible just to please have a minute each, parting words from both our guests?
Of course, of course. I thought we did that when there was saying goodbye, of course. Michelle, Bonginkosi, we will start with Michelle and then Bonginkosi as well as final thoughts.
Hi. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for this platform, for this opportunity. I'm absolutely inspired and encouraged by all the questions that are coming up. It does show that there is interest in our world, and I'm glad that myself and Bonginkosi could put some perspective into it, and how there are questions, and we do live in this mining world, and although it seems like it's in the background, it's very much in the forefront of everything that we live with and everything that we do. So continue to be curious, continue to ask these questions, and don't stop there. So I'm absolutely glad. I'm just answering the last question of the Zamazamas. It is a tough thing to understand how they still have an economy in a sense that the big companies won't have an economy. So, and these things are very relevant in our lives. So it's good. I appreciate your curiosity, everyone. I hope you continue being like this. I appreciate Lihle for starting up this platform. It's absolutely brilliant. There are very few ones like this, and I hope in the future we could also, and I also want to be an attendee, even just to listen, and we talk about how the world is moving into this AI world and how we stay relevant and how we grow, because that's where the future is going. And Bonginkosi touched on it as well, because that's where mining is going, but that's where the world is going. Where mining goes, that's where the world is going, or vice versa. So this is great. I would love to partake in the future ones, not necessarily as a speaker, but also as a participant and as an audience, and share ideas and ask questions. So I'm equally as inspired, and I can't wait to be part of it. So thank you so much. May we just continue to drive this idea and be leaders together. So that's all. Thank you for me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Michelle. You are officially a Future Global Leaders Ambassador, so you're welcome anytime.
Yes. Thank you.
Any final thoughts from you?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. It was an honor. And I did not know that as part of my parenting skills, my teenagers will have certain questions in terms of careers. And some of those questions could have been answered in a forum like this. Highly appreciated. Great work. I actually have two younger brothers and also a younger sister. The one coming after me is 10 years younger than me, is a mechanical engineer. The one coming after that is a geologist. Wow. My sister is doing a PhD in agriculture. My parting words: talk about something, it's a dream. Envision it, it becomes exciting. Plan it, it becomes possible. Schedule it, it becomes real. That's Anthony Robbins. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much to our incredible speakers. Thank you to our FGLers. I am going to close now with Sandile if there's anything else that I've missed.
All is good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We have our next session on the 13th of July, and look out for the announcement, of course, for the very first date for our FGL Runway series, as we see you soar to the very top. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. Have yourselves a good evening.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.